Hi, this is Ron Nutter, and welcome to another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time, just like the title slide shows, we're going to be setting up Windows 10 under VirtualBox. Now, as with anything, there's more than one way to do this. I'm going to walk you through how I'm doing it, and we're going to talk about some little points along the line. Now, if you're following me in this particular series, I've got a 240 meg SSD drive in a case plugged into my MacBook Pro. And in the previous video that started out this series, I show you how I've got it set up. And I am going to be creating links or sharing links with you for the different OSs involved. And because I've had that request come from the other video. So that's what we're going to do. But if you want to go ahead and build yours as we go along on this journey, then let's go ahead and get started. I've got all the links in the show note descriptions. There are affiliate links. I do get a small commission. So if you buy that, hey, I really appreciate that. But, if you're not, that's fine too. My concern is about helping you. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and by the way, thank you for everybody who's been subscribing to the channel and liking the video and leaving comments, because all those mean a lot to me, because I know everybody's busy. So thank you again, and let's go ahead and get started. So at this point, you see I've already got Windows 10 up and running, but we're going to set up a separate instance. And here's why. That's the one I've already got up and running, but we're going to walk through another one. So you'll click on New, and we'll call this Windows, now if I can spell here, Windows 10 Test. And it's always possible. You may have more than one copy of Windows running at a time or installed, because you may be testing different things. And we'll go over that a little bit later. Now, the machine folder by default, it's going to default into your local machine. So we'll go down here to Other, and then we'll go down here and select the SSD drive that I've got sitting out there, and we'll click on VirtualBox VMs. I tried to keep the naming on this the same. Now we'll click OK there, and we'll click Continue. And I don't know why it's saying that little memory. Let's go ahead and ramp it up here a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to expect this to be a speed burner, but I want to give it a decent amount of memory. Now, the MacBook I'm on maxes out at 16 gigs. That's the most I can do. So that's why I'm only going to give it about a fourth of that, because I've still got to keep room open for everything else. So we'll click Continue. By default, this is what it's going to do for Windows 10. And that's not a bad size, and here's why. When I'm doing different test machines, if I'm going to be sharing data or have a predefined set of applications that I want to use, I will create just an OS drive for those files. So in case something happens, you won't lose everything. Just the OS drive would be corrupted in most cases. It's unusual the data drive would be an issue. So we'll click on Create. I just accept the default of VDI. Now, if you're going to be doing things like where you're using a predefined type, or you're going to be sharing things with VMware Player or with Microsoft's virtualization system, then you may have to select another one. But I'm just going to accept the default of VDI. And dynamically allocate it. Now, let's explain this one. If you've not heard that term before, this is what it means. Even though we've told it up front, we want to have a 50 gig drive, you may not want to tie up all its space at once. So what it will do is it will create the drive in chunks or sections, for lack of a better phrase, and it keep expanding that drive as you need it. Now, I haven't done this with Linux-based systems, because Linux, at least the last time I did it, and it's been a while, full disclosure, Linux didn't handle it real well. So that's something else we're going to be exploring as we go along. But for right now, we'll take it dynamically allocated. We'll click Continue. See, now we can change the file size at this point. I'm going to say 50 gigs because you remember I selected my SSD drive here for storing it on. So we'll click on Create. Now, you don't start it at this point, and here's why. Because it's not going to work. Because what have we not done? We've not given it the ISO to install from. So with that one being highlighted, you can either right-click and go to Settings, or we can just click Settings up here. And we will go to Storage and click down here where it says Empty. And we will click the little drive there. And see, at this point, I've already been working with it. So it remembers that as one of the last ISOs I selected. So that's what we'll go with. Now, if it's a live CD, one of these distributions that's fully installed on the CD or DVD, you'd want to check that option, because then you can't allow that to be ejected when you're doing something else, or you're adding apps to it. So we'll click OK there. One other thing, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have gotten out of that we want to touch on, is we'll go under network. Now, you see by default here, that's NAT. And if you're not familiar with that term, it stands for Network Address Translation. This is a way where you don't tie up another address on your home network, because you may, depending on your configuration, you may already have quite a few devices out there. Where you want to consider changing this from NAT to bridged is if you want other devices to be able to talk to this. Now, if it's devices on this same computer, that's fine. NAT mode shouldn't be an issue, or you probably would want to go NAT network. But bridged adapter is what will make it will pass through the network adapter that's on your computer so that you can work with it that way. For right now, we'll leave it as NAT. This can be changed. And there may be a couple of cases where it would be an issue, but for the most part, you can change that later. But I wanted to make you aware of that setting now. So we'll click on OK, and we'll click Start. Now, if you notice, the box comes up real small. So we'll go up here to View and Virtual Screen, and we'll go down here to 200%. Needless to say, that makes that a lot more viewable. And we'll just click those options there. And really, this is, so you see the start of the process. And let's get back over here to the main screen here. I've got to release my cursor. So you see at this point, we're 7 minutes in, and you're already up to this point. So that's really all it takes to get it up and running. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you, so bear with me as we switch back here. As you're doing this, we'll get to a point once you do, and you can only do this, or should only do it, once the operating system is finished installing, and you want to add, you want to do insert guest edition CD image. What this is going to do is it puts some additional extensions in the operating system so it plays better in a virtualized environment. And that's something that you don't have to worry about right now, but it's something that, let's get back to that main screen, that you do want to do, because it's going to handle the keyboard better. The video is going to be better. You see, I already had to resize the video a little bit. You may or may not have to do that on your computer. It all depends on how it sees the video display. And there's a whole host of options you can get on this. And there's an advantage of doing virtualization. Well, for example, the first time through when I set up Windows 10, it hung on me. It got to a PIN option that said, please enter your PIN. I kept clicking on the little box that said to enter the PIN. It wouldn't get past that point. So I said, all right, fine. What are the worst I'm going to lose? I have to reinstall the operating system. So I did a shutdown of the VM, restarted it. And you know what? The next time it got to that point, it was just fine. So something had gotten hung in the process. So that's really just one step at a time. And as you go through, you're going to see different things to play with. Now, here's the other thing, and I'm sorry, I was over here on another screen and you couldn't see what I was doing. Let's go back over here, and we are going to go down here. I thought I had the right screen up here. Now, once we get through this option, and this is where I got to get my cursors decided to not play nice. So we'll go down here through these different options, and come on, there we go. And we'll click next, and it says install now. So it's going to start going through the process, and you will get a menu here at some point that allows you, because of the particular ISO that I selected. Well, see, it's going to say activate Windows. Okay, just click I don't have a product key. If I remember the information right, it's supposed to run about 180 days before it becomes an issue. Now, this is where you can get a feel for the different versions of Windows. You can do the single language. You can see what education's got. You can do Pro, which is what most businesses would probably get, or you can get the Home Edition. And there's varying there's varying feature sets that as to what you will and won't see in the different versions. So that's really not a problem. So this is the beauty of virtualization. If you make a mistake, you haven't lost anything. You can simply redo it. And what I have done is we'll talk about something called, well, I call it term snapshots. It's basically differential backups you can do during the process, or you can do a clone of the machine. At one point, I used to write for Network World several years ago, and I had a reader actually call in to the magazine, and then they transferred him over to me. He couldn't get into our website and was having problems. Well, I set up a complete virtualization setup, didn't think to ask him about his browser, and I went through and tried all the different browsers, and I found out that there was a problem with this one browser. So I reached out to the IT folks and said, hey, you need to look at this on the website. I've reproduced it. It's only with this browser. Can you make an adjustment? And it was that simple. But that's one of the things that virtualization allowed me to do, is I had different iterations of that VM that each had a different browser. Even though now, with some changes that have occurred recently, I know I can have the same browser or multiple browsers on the same machine. Back then, I was trying to be kind of not purist, but I was trying to err on the side of caution. So that way, I didn't have one browser possibly changing the environment for another. And if I had to troubleshoot that again today, I'd probably still do that same way, because when you're troubleshooting, you want to have it as clean as possible. But anyway, so you see where we go. It's really, you don't need to see me install the rest of Windows 10, but I've gotten you to a point where you can see what it's going to take. Now, when you do get to the point where you see a prompt come up on the screen that says, press any key if you want to boot from CD or DVD, you're going to need to go through here, and let's shift back here, and you'll go up to Devices, and you will go Optical Drives, and you will select Remove Disk from Virtual Drive. And then that point on, it's never going to ask you from that again. Now, once you've gotten to where you've gotten to this message, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be redundant with the English. Once you have removed your ISO that you created your Windows 10 installation from, now is the time you'll want to go through and do the Insert Guest CD image, and you'll see a message or window pop up on the screen that it's going to ask you to what do you want to do, and you'll just run the setup exe with that comes in that window. And you'll probably have to reboot. It does some work with some of the drivers in Windows 10 or any of the operating systems. And then you're up and going at that point. So it's taken a little bit longer to do this than I had hoped. But anyway, I've tried to kind of cut to the chase with keeping things very straightforward. I've got all the step-by-step on what to do in the description of the video. Thank you for your time. I'm going to be doing more videos in this series. It's going to be probably about one a week, because I don't want to do a whole bunch of VirtualBox ones back to back, because there's other things I'm trying to keep coming out with as well. But I thought it was important enough to go ahead and get this one done for you right now. And then we'll take it to go where we go from there. If you have any specific OS you'd like to see me install past the point of the ones that you saw me show in a list yesterday, please let me know. I'm always looking at different options, and we're going to be taking some of the things that we've already been working with on the Raspberry Pi and building them as a VM under VirtualBox. So thank you for your time. Thank you for those who have been subscribing to the channel and liking the video. If this video has also helped you, would appreciate you clicking the like button. If you know of anyone who would be interested in doing this or would benefit from it, please share this with them. I'm happy to help however I can. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you again soon.